Hi everyone, my name is John Cottrell and this is Soft Flow. This is a 60-minute yoga practice. It's a gentle yoga practice. Hopefully you'll enjoy this. I like to use a lot of props for this class, and so just check around the house to see if you've got these items which will assist you. I like to sit on something soft, just like a folded blanket. That's perfect. Anything soft, even a big pillow will do. If you have a couple of yoga blocks or something that might resemble yoga blocks, they could be a stack of dictionaries or any other tool that would just kind of lift the floor, bring you a little closer, bring the floor a little bit closer to you. And another soft object like a big pillow. This is a yoga bolster. And this is very nice often for your Shavasana practice when we come to the end of our practice together. So I always like to begin soft flow in a seated position, and so I cross my legs. This is a half lotus posture, and this is comfortable for me. This doesn't necessarily have to be the sitting style for you at the moment. If it feels better to extend your legs, please do that, or sit up against a wall, or even sit in a chair if you'd rather do that. Let's go ahead and settle in as you find your comfortable seat. I invite you to close your eyes, or just soften your eyes and just take that soft gaze forward or downward, and just tune into your breath. You might take a few deep breaths in and out, just to have that awareness that you are breathing. Let's begin to establish our intention for our practice together. Just continue with slow, steady breaths in and out, making this connection with self, starting to move inward, taking this journey inside of self. In our physical practice, we're going to be focusing on our hip flexors. Our hip flexors. This is the region of the body, like the upper thigh area, the pelvis, and your low stomach. These are areas that can certainly be tight and bound up. We store a lot of energy in these areas. So sometimes we need to do a little something, some manipulation of the body in order to help release, to open those spaces, to let that energetic blockage to free itself, to flow, to move. Sometimes we store energy that's not very useful for us. And that kind of just gets locked and bound up inside. So again, a moving yoga practice, for example, is a wonderful way to kind of open up those doors, to let some fresh air in, and even allow some of the old cobwebs and dusty items in there to be brushed to the side. So even think of your practice as a breath of fresh air, cleansing and healing, revealing and opening. So just continue to breathe in and out. Slow, steady breaths. Take 3 more deep breaths. With these 3 breaths, we'll prepare our bodies to move. We'll step into what I call our moving meditation. A very simple movement. Whenever you're ready, we'll inhale. Go ahead and extend your arms out across the room. Reach and stretch. Finish your full breath in as you reach up towards the sky. Then as you exhale, extend your arms out, reaching, stretching, and let your arms come back down by your side. Let's do that again at your own pace. Inhale, extend your arms out, reaching up. Good stretch there. Exhale, extend your arms out, and let them float back down by your side. And go ahead and continue doing this on your own. Breathe at your own pace, move at your own pace. And I'll just give some simple instructions as you're moving and breathing. As you reach your arms out and up, Feel the stretch quality in your arms. Very actively reach out as if you're going to touch the walls on either side of you. And you reach into the air, maybe feel that lengthening through the sides of your body. You feel like you're going to reach up to touch the ceiling. Keep your body in motionless, pay attention to the breath. When you inhale next, feel your breath rising upward to fill up your lungs. So this might be a deep breath in, feeling that expansiveness there. Exhale, and as you're able, draw your navel inward toward your spine. What you're doing is flexing your abdominal muscles or contracting the abdominal section. We're just bringing a little bit more awareness to the body as you breathe. Very nice. Go ahead and finish this breath that you're on and take 2 more breaths. Again, feeling this good energy flowing and moving through your body. We already started that process of kind of opening those doors, letting the body experience that breath of fresh air. Starting to dust away all those cobwebs inside. When we feel complete, just let your arms rest down by your side or in your lap. And just come to a moment of stillness and relaxation in your body. Notice your breath. Just stay where you are, just turn sideways so you can get a different perspective of this. You're gonna bring your hands behind you. You might just lean back into your hands, or if you're sitting up on something like a blanket or a block, you might just lean back onto your fingertips. And very gently just roll your shoulders back, just to open up your chest and heart space. And then you'll tip your chin up just a little bit. We just create just a mild back bend. As you inhale, just press your hands or fingertips into the ground. Take a full breath in and fill up your lungs. Then exhale, and same energy of drawing your navel inward towards your spine. Inhale again, pressing hands into the mat. Breath rising, fill up your lungs. Exhale, that light contraction of your abdominal muscles. Let's add a few more items to be more aware of our bodies. As you press into the ground, just feel the energy and strength in your arms. Your shoulders are drawn back. As you exhale, you might even squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you, in addition to contracting the abdominal muscles. Deep breaths, slow, steady breaths. Let's just take 2 more breaths in this mild seated back bend. When you feel complete, just lower your chin. Walk your hands toward yourself so you can sit up. And then inhale, extend your arms into the air, reaching upward to extend your spine. And exhale, just sweep your arms out and back down as you did earlier with that same energy and focus. Pause for a moment. Now, if your legs are crossed, we're going to change our leg position. I'm uncrossing the legs and place the soles of your feet together. This is another posture. This is cobbler's pose or bound angle pose. So just for the comfort in your knees, feel free to have the feet farther forward like this. This just puts more of a 90-degree angle in the legs and less stress on the knees. You can even use blocks or pillows on either side of your legs here, so your legs can just rest on something, which is always nice. If it does feel okay on the knees, you can certainly draw the feet in a little closer. And wherever you are, wherever your feet are, you just want to be able to hold on to your legs. It might just be it below the knees, it could be your shins, even your ankles, feet, or toes. Wherever you are, you want to be able to sit up nice and tall initially. That's an in-breath. As you exhale, let's connect to center, draw navel to spine, and start to hinge at the hips, leading with your heart and chin, just hinging forward just a tiny bit. These aren't big movements at all. We want to be gentle and kind to the body since we are moving in this soft flow fashion. We'll breathe in, full breath in. Now the breath we do want to have be strong, very strong. Exhaling, draw belly in, hinging forward a tiny bit. Same thing, leading with heart and chin. So at first we're moving with this extended spine, so as long and straight as possible initially. And that should put more emphasis on the inner thighs. And that's an area of the body that certainly can get pretty tight. Now if you can just stay just like this. If this feels good, stay just like this. But you're certainly welcome to go a little deeper if you want. And that might mean maybe just lowering your head a little bit and even rounding your back a little bit as you start to fold a little deeper. And since we are moving in slow motion, this really gives us an opportunity to pay attention to what's going on inside of us. Start to pay attention to all those subtleties within. Feeling in spaces that you're not used to feeling. Notice. I think one thing we really learn in a yoga practice is how to become that non-judgmental observer. That non-judgmental observer. Just a witness. You're just kind of taking a look like, okay, I can feel that. And that feels like this. And that's it, without any type of judgment attached to the feeling that you are having. Let's take 2 more breaths. Notice the sensations. Be that witness. Be that non-judgmental observer. Just notice if your back is rounded, if your chin lowered a little bit. We're going to start moving by lifting the chin. Just lift your head a little bit by looking forward out on the front edge of your mat. That will start that re-extension of your spine. You can even place your hands on your mat if you're low enough and just press to help lift yourself back up until you're nice and tall. That's it, with a long extension through the spine. And just pause here for a moment. Just take a breath. We always like to come back to breath as a baseline. Let's get ready for our new posture. If you were using props on either side of your knees, let's move those out of the way. Carefully manipulate your body so you can come to your hands and knees. And here's where you might want to use some cushioning. I like to use a folded blanket, and I have it kind of in a big rectangle like this so I can place my knees and my hands on the softness here just to protect the knee joints and the wrists. Those certainly can be sensitive areas of the body. Now, if this becomes too much pressure, especially on the wrists, a couple things you can do. One, you can even step the hands forward. That takes some of that pressure off the wrists. If that's not enough, you can always come down to your elbow, something like this for this movement. Basically, this is cat and cow. 2 postures. You're going to inhale, look forward, or lift your head and look forward, arching your back a little bit. Little back bend feel, then exhale, round it all out. Pull your belly button up towards your spine, chin to chest, that nice rounding in your back. Inhale, let's reverse it. You'll tilt your pelvis back, creating that back bend. Your belly will drop a little bit. Heart opens, look forward. Exhale, round it all out. Tuck it all in. And just, again, go at your own pace. Take your time with this. This is going to be very gentle. You don't have to strenuously push yourself into this back bend, nor do you have to do that with the rounded back sensation. Just enough where you have feeling, you notice what's going on. I like this simple movement because it helps release some tension in your pelvis, your low back, lubricates the spine in this nice undulating flow. Go ahead and finish the breath that you're on right now, and we'll take 2 more. Whenever you feel complete, no rush, just come back to a neutral tabletop posture like this. Just hold, take another breath, come back to that baseline. Very good. All right, if you were using some padding, let's crawl off that padding and set it to the side. You can always use it again later. Return to hands and knees, and we'll get set up for our next pose. which is downward facing dog. So if your hands were directly underneath your shoulders, we're going to change that. We'll step the hands forward a little bit. So your wrists are no longer underneath your shoulders. Spread out your fingers pretty wide. That'll get a nice stretch between each finger. And then kind of lean or press your palms with some effort into your mat. So you flatten your palms. It stretches your hands, which is nice. Press a little bit more firmly so you feel the energy and strength in your straight arms. Even feel the inner arms or your biceps squeeze in towards each other, towards center. Hold that sensation. You're going to tuck your toes behind you. Let's do another cat and cow, starting with cow. That's the inhale where you look forward a little bit. These are small movements. Exhale, round it out into cat, rounding the back, and hold that for a couple seconds. Make sure you've tucked your toes. We're going to lift the knees off the mat and then send your hips up and back into the air here as you now move into downward facing dog. Now you may need to adjust. I always step my feet forward just a little bit, even adjust my hands a tiny bit. I like to take them a little wider. And then you're in down dog. From here, moving right away, look at the space between your hands and just start walking up towards your hands. They don't have to make it all the way up to the hands, just to a place where your feet are flat on the mat. And you can balance there. That way you can now inhale and slide your hands up to your shins, knees, or your thighs and extend your spine so it's long like a table. Then exhale, that's it, and back down to a forward fold. We're going to pause here for a little bit. Now you don't have to touch your toes. I'm not touching my toes at all. My knees are bent, but my hands are resting lightly on my shins. But I do feel this in my hamstrings. So notice where you feel this. You might feel this in your legs. You might feel this in your back, maybe even your shoulders. And just take some deep breaths. Maybe we're opening up a few more doors. From here, you're going to lean back or shift your weight back into your heels. We're getting ready to stand. Bend your knees and let your hips drop like you're sitting down into a chair. Look forward with your head, with your eyes. Extend your arms out to the side. I'll just call it spread your wings. Drive your heels into the ground to help straighten your legs as you get tall. And even taller still. Good as you reach into the air with your hands. Nice and tall there. Then exhale. Bring your arms out and down by your side. And this brings us to mountain pose. Very nice. Hold for a moment. Our first standing posture. And just take a couple breaths as you feel the nice alignment in the body. Stable and strong in this sturdy pose. We're going to go through that half salute again, which means we'll fold and then come back up. Taking our time together, we'll inhale, reach into the air. That same energy of extending to touch the ceiling. Exhale, spread your wings, bring your arms out to the side, bend your knees and feel like you're sitting back and down into a chair that's behind you. And as you get a little lower, just let your hands drop, let your head drop. And then again, you don't have to touch your toes. Maybe your hands land at your shins. Knees can be bent. Inhale, slide your hands up to your knees or thighs, extending your spine. Feel like you're coming forward, being led by the top of your head. Then exhale back down to a forward fold. And of course, that still could be a modified position. Pause for a second. Feel what's happening. Let's continue. Once again, shifting your weight back into your heels. Bend your knees. Let your hips come down a little bit. Look forward. Extend your arms out to the side. Drive heels into the ground. Rise up nice and tall. Reach into the air. And same thing. Exhale. Let's bring the arms back down by your side. We'll pause once again. Couple more breaths. Steady and strong in your mountain pose. All right. Our next sequence, I'm just going to guide you through a sun salutation. I'll work with you to align your body in some safe places to be aware of our joints, our major joints, hips, knees, and ankles. Here we go. Inhale, reach into the sky. Exhale, spread your wings, bend your knees, and sit back into an imaginary chair. Take your time with this. As you move slowly, you really engage a lot of muscles here too. Let the hands drop as you get a little lower. Let your head drop a little bit. Hands might land at your shins. Inhale, slide your hands up to your knees or thighs. Let's really extend the spine. This exhale, you're going to bend your knees enough, let the back curve and round until you're low enough to place your hands on your mat in front of you. And then start stepping, walking your feet back to the back end of your mat until you're in plank pose or a high push-up position. You can be just like this. You can even do this with your knees on the ground if you need to. Hold there. This is a great strength building posture. I like to hold this posture for a couple seconds. Breathe in, more length in the entire body. This exhale, bend your knees a little bit like you're about to kneel, but send your hips into the air just to return us to downward facing dog. Same adjustments if you need to with your feet, maybe your hands. We'll hold for a little bit longer at any time if you need to rest. If this is too much pressure or you just get tired, you can always bring your knees to the ground and rest. Let's continue the flow. Whenever you're ready, you're going to inhale, extend your right leg up behind you. It doesn't have to lift high. It's just lift it and reach through your toes to the wall behind you. Now we're going to exhale, bend your right knee. Bring the right knee in underneath you towards your chest. As it comes forward, shift your body forward so your shoulders will stack over your wrists. And then just set your right foot down onto the mat. Doesn't matter where it lands, just set it down. And then set your left knee down onto the mat. What we're going to do is literally pick up the right foot and place it up where your right hand is, just somewhere in that area. And then re-lift that left knee. Now the weight of your body is probably forward towards your hands and this right foot. This isn't very balanced. We need to find balance. We do that by moving your hips back towards the back end of your mat. That should bring lightness to your hands and fingers. You should to rise up a little bit. If you look at me, I've lifted where I can. There's no more weight on my hands. I call this sweep the floor with the fingers. You want to have that sensation. And then walk your hands as you're able up to your thigh. Press into the thigh to lift yourself up a little bit more in the upper body until you're at this 45-degree angle. We're going to hold this for a moment. We need to activate this back leg just to make sure it's steady. We're going to push the left heel back as if you're pressing it into the ground. That should bring some more energy to that back leg. Now imagine you've got a block between your thighs. Squeeze your inner thighs towards each other. That should bring energy to the thighs. And then pull your belly in with an exhale. Now extend your arms out to the side, reaching out, spread your wings, and reach up into the air. Look forward. Now you're perpendicular to the floor. Reach up high, and then just lunge a little bit. Just kind of, I call this kind of sitting into the pocket of the pose. This high lunge. Now this is one of our first postures that gets into this left hip flexor, and that's the physical region that we're focusing on. We're going to breathe in, reach up, and lift up a little bit. You're going to pivot or turn that whole left leg. That left heel will come to the floor. Turn your upper body sideways. That's it. And bring your arms down to parallel. That's it. Let's be aware of that right knee. Make sure your right knee is pointing directly forward. There you go. Nice adjustment. Extending your arms parallel to the floor, reaching out. This is another hip opener. Very nice. Let's take side angle. You're going to follow the right arm forward, reaching out to angle the upper half of the body, then rotate the arms. Now the right arm can remain straight on the inner right thigh, or you can bend it and just let it rest lightly on the thigh if you want. Inhale, reach into the air with the left hand. We're going to exhale and slowly turn the whole body, your whole torso towards the floor. Bend carefully to bring the hands back down to the mat next to that foot. And then re-lift that left heel behind you. We'll end up in a lunge. Pause here for a moment, because we're going to be coming back to this pose in the second round, but we'll do something a little bit differently once we get here. For now, push hands firmly into the floor, strong hands, strong arms, so that you can slide this right foot back to meet the other. So now we're back in that plank pose. Bend your knees a little, send your hips into the air, I'll return to downward facing dog. Make some adjustments. Hold here for a moment if you like. Move with me when you're ready. Other side. Inhale, extend left leg up into the air, reach back. Exhale, bend this left knee, bring it in underneath you towards your chest. As you do so, shift your body forward so your shoulders are over your wrists. Once you're there, set the left foot down onto the mat. Set your right knee down. Again, literally just reaching back, picking up your left foot to place it up in your left hand. Doesn't have to reach all the way, just in hand range is good. Relift the right knee,
If your weight is forward, and typically it is, we're shifting the hips back enough where there's less or no weight on the hands. Here's I'm sweeping the mat with my fingertips. Just a little test there to make sure we're centered. Bring both hands up to thigh, press into thigh, lifting, extending spine. Hold. We're at 45 degrees here with an extended upper body. Anchor with that right heel. Just push the heel back towards the floor. Feel your calf muscle engage. Squeeze the imaginary block between your thighs to engage the thighs, and then pull belly in. We do that for stabilization. Extend your arms out, spread your wings, reach out, reach up, big stretch, reach for the ceiling. You might even lift up and then lunge low, sitting into the pocket of the pose. And now feel the right hip flexor doing its work. We're coming out. We're going to lift up to unlock the hips. Let's turn that right foot so it's firm on the ground. Turn sideways. Bring your arms down to parallel. Be sure to check in with your left knee. Be sure your left knee and toes are pointing directly forward so you can maximize the inner thigh stretch. Side angle pose. Reach out over this left thigh. Rotate your arms. Left arm will come onto the inside of the leg. Or again, you can kind of rest. Bend the arm and let it rest lightly on the thigh. See, we're not even very close to the floor. This is a kind of a modified position. If we wanted to go much deeper, we would take the feet farther apart, and this left hand would be all the way down, perhaps even touching the ground. Let's breathe in, reach higher through the right arm. Exhale, we'll carefully turn the torso towards the floor. Bend enough carefully to bring the hands to the mat. Really lift that right knee. Here's that runner's lunge. Hold for a moment. Remember, returning to this posture a little bit later. Push hands firmly into the floor, strong hands and arms. Even lift your hips a little bit so you can actually slide or step this left foot back. Let's return to our plank pose. Hold for a breath or two, building more strength, mainly in the upper body. Let's go ahead and bring the knees to the ground. Let's sit back for a moment, just get the pressure off the hands. This is hero pose. We're not going to be here long at all. We're actually just going to slide off the heels onto the mat so you can swing the legs around to the front. And even scoot yourself so you're sitting in the center of your mat. We're going to go to bridge pose, which is a lying down posture, and it's a back bend. What you may want to use as props is maybe some stacked blocks or a big pillow, because we're going to make this a supported back bend. And this is going to be another way we can open up the hip flexors. When you're ready, go ahead and lie down. You're going to lie down with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor. You can even take your feet a little wider if that feels better. At least for me, it feels better on my knees, feels better on my hips and my low back if I take my feet a little wider, especially when I'm ready to lift into bridge. Just take a nice full breath in to fill up your lungs. You can exhale through your mouth, engaging the belly, same contraction of the abdominal muscles. Use that energy now to press feet into the ground to lift your hips up into the air. Lift your hips up away from the ground. Now you can just hold just like that. Just keep pressing into the ground with the feet, hips lifted. Or if you've got some blocks or even your hands, slide those blocks, slide your props underneath you. In the supported version of this, we can just kind of rest, and it opens up the hip flexors in a not so very forceful way, and that's very nice. And it's like taking a chair pose, like sitting in a chair all day, and this is like the opposite rendition of chair, just sitting in a back bend. Now you could make this more active if you wanted to by just lifting the hips, no objects underneath you. And the higher the hips, without forcing it, it starts to activate some release, some stretch, some muscle engagement in the hip flexor region. And so that can classify as kind of that upper thigh area, your belt line, your pelvis, and even your low belly. So just be aware of these regions in the body and even other parts of your body that are stimulated. 2 more breaths. We'll be coming back to this pose at the end of the practice too. So if you are using blocks, you're just going to press into the floor, lift your hips so you can remove your blocks out of the way. And then wiggle your toes forward just a little bit, maybe extend your arms into the air. This just makes a little bit more space in the body as you come back down to the ground. without pinching your back. Let's extend the body. So go ahead and extend your legs out front and reach your arms behind you and actively reach in these opposite directions. It's almost like doing mountain pose. We stand in mountain pose, lengthen through the entire body. This is kind of the lying down version. Now from here, go ahead and hug both knees into chest. Now here's that chair-like position. Now this is how we're most of the day, sitting in a chair, at a desk, in your car, in the seated posture. And in the hip flexors, they can get pretty tight in this area, right? And so we're doing things to do the counter action of it. All right, slowly rock forward and back. With a good exhale, rock yourself up to seated. If you don't make it the first time, don't worry. Just rock a little bit or even roll to your side and then press yourself up. Let's come back to cobbler's pose just for a moment. So the soles of the feet touch. This time let's go ahead and bring the hands behind us. Same thing as we did a little bit earlier, just pressing hands into the mat, shoulders roll back, tip chin up. Then just take a couple of breaths, just returning to this little back bend. You might find that the knees just open up a little bit more naturally here. More hip openers. 2 more breaths. Then lower your chin. Looking forward. Same thing, we're just going to manipulate the body, so we're going to return to our tabletop on our hands and knees. And once you're on hands and knees, we're going to bring that blanket back in and just place it directly underneath you, so it's between the hands and the knees, so something like this. Be a folded blanket, something like that. It's just going to give us a little cushion in a moment. Let's go back to down dog. So you're going to step your hands forward. Once again, just get your wrists out from underneath the shoulders, spread out your fingers, press into the ground, strong hands and arms and even upper body, tuck your toes. With an exhale, like that cat pose, lift knees, lift hips, downward facing dog. So it's a nice angled position. Your hips are the highest point. You can see that blanket right underneath you. We're going to call that our obstacle course for a moment. So you're going to be stepping over that blanket if possible. Here we go. Inhale, extend your right leg up into the air. It doesn't have to be high, just long. As you exhale, bring your right knee in underneath you towards your chest. Shift your body weight forward. If you're able, step over the blanket. If you don't, make it over the blanket, don't worry about it. Do what you did earlier. Just set your foot down, even if it's on the blanket. You'll set your left knee down, pick up your right foot and get it over the blanket. And you'll end up something like this. So here's that runner's lunge I talked about earlier. But now we're going to set the left knee down onto that blanket. So that's just giving us some cushioning. So then when you're there, you're just going to rise up like this, lift your upper body. So we're like this. So we're just kind of in this kneeling sensation of the body. Now let's check out these angles in the body and this alignment. So this left leg, your hip is over the knee, out that way, and then here, same thing, a nice alignment, knee over ankle. So these nice 90-degree angles. So we're going to change that. We're going to be lunging. Just stay where you are. Don't do this with me. We're going to be lunging, but we don't want to lunge like this. This is going to put too much pressure in the knee right there. So what we're going to do, lean back a little bit, just so it takes some of the pressure off the front foot so you can easily wiggle it forward. Okay, so you're just going to wiggle that right foot forward. Now you can take it as far as you want, depending how deep you want to take the lunge, okay? And your hands are just resting on this thigh, looking forward. Inhale, get really tall in the torso. As you exhale, just start sending the pelvis forward. Here comes that lunge. Now I'm going to pause here because if I stop here, the knee is restacked over the ankle. I can go a little further. So I'm actually going to shift back a little bit, move my right foot farther forward, and then lunge a little deeper. And what I want to feel, and maybe you're feeling it, is the left hip flexor. Yes, we'll make those adjustments because we don't want all that pressure in the right knee. We want to feel this as a lengthening sensation in the left hip flexor. And you, like I said, you can go as deep as you like, being sure you're not forcing or pushing yourself into the pose. Maybe just coming to the spot where you feel like, oh, I feel that lengthening. Here's some other things to be aware of. If you feel some pinching in the low back, because you are in this lunging position, which kind of creates kind of a back bend feel. If that doesn't feel right, then you may want to lean forward with your upper body to take that pinch away from the low back. If that's not bothering you at all, you might get even taller in the torso and maybe lean back a little bit. Now, yes, it's more of a back bend, but it might put more sensation good in the left hip flexor. Again, feel, listen, pay attention. Be that witness of your own body, because you can always modify. If it's not feeling right, you want to make those adjustments. 3 more breaths. If you're still up nice and tall, we probably all are, let's just lean forward. Let your torso kind of rest over this right thigh. Even bring your left hand to the ground, to the mat. And then the right hand to the mat. So both hands are on the inside of the right foot. We're just going to go a little bit deeper. We're just going to stay in this position. We're just going a little bit deeper. And not only are you feeling this perhaps in the left hip flexor, but maybe your right inner thigh. We're not going to hold here too long at all. One more breath. Now, if you're really deep in this lunge, we need to soften it up a little bit so we can get out of it. So you might pull your hips up and back a little bit. Lean a little bit to your left side so that you can slide or step your right foot or right knee back onto the mat. So we've returned to hands and knees, but both knees are probably on your blanket at the moment. Yes. Now let's get set up for the other side. Let's step the hands forward again. Press strongly into the ground, strong hands and arms, tuck your toes, and then lift your knees off the blanket. Return to downward facing dog. Same obstacle course. Inhale, extend left leg up, reach back. Exhale, bend your left knee, bring it in towards chest, shift your body weight forward. See if you can step over the blanket. Now, I didn't make it. I'm right on the blanket, which means I'm going to set the right knee down, pick up the left foot, and get over that blanket. That's all. And then once you're in that runner's lunge, gently set your right knee on the blanket, and we're going to rise up, upper body. So we're in this kneeling, this lunge position, just like that. And your hands can just rest on your thigh. So exact same thing here. We're going for the lunge. We don't want to do it from here because this will put too much pressure on the left knee. So just lean back a little bit, takes the pressure off that left foot, and just wiggle it forward. It might even go off the mat. That's okay, just depending on how deep you want to take your lunge. Hands are on thigh. We're going to inhale, make sure you're nice and tall in the torso. Exhale, start sending the hips forward. Take these gently. Maybe you'll move a little bit. Pause. Take another breath, make more space. Exhale, go a little deeper. Now I've come to the same dilemma where my knee is over ankle. I don't want to go further than that, and I want to go a little deeper. So I'm going to pull back a little bit, wiggle my toes forward a tiny bit more, and then lunge. And this should be the perfect spot for my right hip flexor stretch. So we'll hold here. So check in to see if you're in the space that feels right for you. Check in with your low back. If it feels too back bendy for you, lean forward like this. Or if you don't mind that sensation, get nice and tall and maybe lean back, but very carefully, not too far. And see what changes occur in the body. The right hip flexor, maybe this also strengthens the low back. Just be sure it doesn't feel like it's painful at all. No harm done. That certainly fits with the first ethical principle of yoga, which is called ahimsa. Ahimsa, which means nonviolence. That certainly means towards self. We want to be kind, loving, and gentle to ourselves. All right, start to lean forward so your torso is resting on your thigh a little bit. Let's place the right hand down and left hand down onto the mat on the inside of the left foot. We're just changing the sensations a little bit. Maybe even deepening the lengthening quality in the right hip flexor. Maybe you've added some stretch to the left inner thigh. 2 more breaths. You're not going to be here long. Excellent. These are certainly poses you can do on your own. Okay. Now we're pulling the hips back a little bit so we can get out of the pose. Maybe lean a little bit to your right side. So you can just kind of, I'm actually just, see how I'm doing this? I'm just kind of walking this left foot out to the side so it's out of its place. And so I can just easily just kind of swing it back behind me and come back to hands and knees. Once you've made it to hands and knees, let's go back to that series of cat and cow. So an inhale, lift head and heart, arch in the back a little. Exhale to round it all out. Maybe 2 more on your own. And after we finish, we'll just pause on our hands and knees, and we'll just go through one more flow of the body before we come down to the mat for our final sequence. Just hold for a moment. If you're on that pad, let's crawl off the pad, set it to the side. Let's return to our downward facing dog. Same setup. Step your hands forward. Spread out your fingers. Press palms firmly, strong arms. Tuck toes with an exhale, lift knees and hips. Here's our down dog. Ready for the flow. Same sensation of inhaling to extend right leg up. Exhale, bend right knee. Bring it in underneath you towards chest. Shift your body weight forward. Imagine the blanket still there and step over it. Right up to the hand. The weight is forward, shift the weight back. Rise to fingertips, do the little brushing or sweeping of the mat. Hands to thigh, lift yourself up. Good. To that 45-degree angle. Anchor the left heel. Squeeze inner thighs, squeeze your belly. Arms out to the side, spread your wings. Reach up. Now we're just going to keep lifting up. And then open right away to warrior 2. Pivot left heel to the ground behind you. Feel everything open up sideways, arms parallel. Yes. Side angle, reach out over the right thigh, angled upper body. That's it. Rotate the arms, right arm down, left arm up. Let's hold for a couple more breaths here. A nice expansion, opening of the body. This, to me, resembles kind of like the doors opening. Breathe in. Here we go. Exhale, turn towards the floor. Carefully bend. Bring hands to the mat. Lift the left heel behind you. There's our runner's lunge again. Hands firmly pressing into the ground so you can slide the right foot back. Plank very briefly. Down dog. Bend your knees, hips into the sky. Yes, we are moving a little bit more quickly, but we're still moving with intention. Take your time if you need to. Inhale, extend left leg up. Exhale, bend your left knee. Bring knee in towards chest. Shift body weight forward. Step left foot down by left hand, or use all those variations we know how to use to get here. Shift weight back to get pressure off the hands. Sweep the mat with your fingertips. Hands to thigh. Lift up 45 degrees, extended torso. Activate the right heel. Squeeze the inner thighs. Squeeze belly. Sweep your arms out and up as you inhale. Reach up. You might lift up a little bit. With your exhale, immediately open to your warrior 2. Be sure your right foot is entirely on the ground. Side angle. Reach out over your left thigh. Angle the upper body. Rotate the arms. This is nicely modified. We don't have to touch the ground at all with this left hand. Hold for a couple more breaths. Experiencing the opening of the doors. Letting that fresh air flow right in these newly open spaces. Breathe in again, ready to move. Exhale, we'll turn. Bring hands to the mat. Rise up on the tiptoes behind you. There's our runner's lunge. Strong press into the ground with the hands. Slide left foot back, plank. Let's hold it a little bit longer. More strength building. Then bring knees to the ground. Sit back briefly in hero. Then we'll get off the heels onto the mat, swing the legs around to the front. We'll get ready to close our practice. I'm just going to adjust my mat a little bit. So we are going to be lying down for the remainder of the practice. So if you like to use props for these, just have everything nearby. Your blocks, your blanket, maybe your bolster, so you can easily grab them, okay?
And the first things you might want to have are your blankets. We're going to go back to that bridge pose. So sitting in the center of your mat, go ahead and lie down. Knees bent, feet flat on the floor. So our supported bridge pose, so something that you can sit on. Inhale, fill up your lungs. Exhaling to engage belly, using that sensation to lift hips up into the air. Now again, you could just hold yourself up, just like this, but this is more activation, more engagement in the body. But we're wanting to send the signal to the brain and body that we're starting to relax. So you might want to sit on something. That could be your hands, a folded blanket, a big pillow, or stacked blocks. And just notice when you do sit, you get a little bit more relaxed. Let's hold here for a little bit. And again, it's a nice opening in the whole front side of the body. Flexors, your belly, your pelvis, your chest, your heart. I'd even invite you to think about the things that have been stored away in your body. Might be a feeling, a thought, a belief system. And maybe your ideas have changed about those sensations, those energies that have been swirling around within you. Maybe it's time to clear them out. A little dusting. Dusting away those cobwebs. So you might use your deep breaths, slow deep breaths in and out like that duster or broom. To sweep it all out, to dust it away. And again, we store a lot of energy in the hips, these lower regions of the body. So perhaps imagining what that stored energy, especially the energies that don't really serve you anymore, being released. Stay here as long as you want. This next pose is really optional. It's an inverted pose. If you're sitting on blocks or something that's propping you up, you're welcome to extend both legs up into the air. Again, this is optional. You can just stay in that supported bridge pose if you'd like. Or if you're not sitting on anything, just lie flat on your mat and then just extend your legs in the air. And it'll be active at first. The legs will be mostly straight. You can even put a little bend in the knees if you need to. You can use your hands to help kind of keep the legs in the air. So it's very active. But then just add some movement. Maybe imagine like you're on a bicycle upside down and you're just pedaling the bicycle. That's it, just moving the legs in any way that feels kind of fun and different. You can get very creative with this. You're taking the legs wide and then back in, maybe they cross. And just notice all those sensations that occur in the body, in the limbs. Move your feet, wiggle your toes if you can. Circle the ankles to get some tension away from the ankle area. Being in seated, being in standing, in upright positions, sends a lot of pressure down to the feet. So this is kind of that counter pose, right? To get the legs and feet in the air, to take some of that pressure off. Very nice. Take a couple more breaths. When you feel complete, just bend your knees so you can set your feet back down onto the ground. Press your feet into the ground to lift your hips. If you've got an object underneath you, just slide them out of the way. And then just bring your hips down to the ground. Bring the legs together. Your feet might touch, your inner thighs might touch. Just for a moment. Let's take another reclining or another cobbler's pose or reclining cobbler's pose. So the knees, yes, just drop out to the side on either side of you. Feet, the soles of the feet are still touching. We're just going back to the inner thigh stretch. This is just in a much more comfortable position.
Be aware of how this feels on the inner thighs. Notice how this feels in your knees. Again, you can always use like pillows or blocks on either underneath the knees so they rest on something, just in case the knees don't make it all the way down to the ground. Of course, they don't have to. And that might minimize that pull or stretch if it's not comfortable for you. And wherever you are, just settling in for a few more breaths. Once again, thinking about that cleansing aspect of your breath. Letting go. Take 2 more breaths here. Take your time. Whenever you're ready to move, you can bring the knees back together at center. Hug both knees into your chest, and we'll twist from here. So we'll take both knees over to the left side, and you extend your right arm to the right side. And that creates a nice twist in the spine. Even here, you want to be very aware of how this feels. Especially with the legs, the knees, if the knees are going to the left and that left knee isn't touching the ground, it doesn't have to touch the ground. Maybe you want to place a block or a pillow underneath it. And that'll just minimize the rotation if this doesn't feel right in your low back. And then the right knee or the right leg, they don't have to touch each other. There might be a gap between the knees here. And again, you might just place a block or a pillow between the knees. So it's just a little bit more comforting. 3 more breaths. And carefully, when you're ready, just bring your knees back up to center. Just pause very briefly there. And then take knees down to the right side. Same thing. Again, the right knee might make it all the way down to the mat. If it doesn't, place something underneath for support or something between the knees for added support. As the knees go to the right, you're extending left arm to the left, of course, creating the twist. Even though we didn't do any other type of twist really in our practice, this is the only one, I think. But a twist, twisting poses in yoga can be another way to signify release, letting go. I always imagine something like a wet rag or a sponge or something that's full of water, and you have to wring it out. And so we can kind of think of twists kind of doing the same thing with our bodies, just kind of wringing out. 2 more breaths. Taking your time, let's come back to center, lifting the knees. 1 more hug, draw the knees in towards your body. Hold there, because here you'll decide how you want to finish your practice. You can just come right into Shavasana, which is extending your legs out onto the floor in front of you with your arms down by your side. Or maybe you want to use a variety of your props for added support. Here's some things you can do. I like to elevate my legs just a little bit, because sometimes just a little bend in the knees just feels more natural, I think, especially if you're lying flat on the ground. So using pillows or a rolled up blanket, in this case a bolster underneath your knees, just to have that slight bend. You can even create a lift where your legs are elevated, your feet are elevated. You can do that with your upper body, whatever feels right. And if lying on your back, again, is not comfortable, maybe you want to lie on your side instead, or even come up to a seated position. Wherever you are, just settle in, feel the body completely relax. Go back to your breath. Just finishing off this cleansing sequence, this cleansing practice. All that nice new fresh air flowing in, healing, cleansing. Return to the awareness of your breath. The simple awareness that you are breathing. Just slow, steady breaths as you relax here in this moment. As you're breathing in and out, start to bring movement back into your body. It might be a simple wiggling of your toes, wiggle your fingers a little bit. Feel movement return to your feet and your hands. Just let that movement start to rise or move through your limbs, right up to the center of your body. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. After your 3rd breath, moving very slowly and gently and carefully, roll onto either side of your body. Just roll onto your side into this nurturing position that will resemble a fetal position. Just pause there for a moment. And continuing to move in slow motion, guide your way up to a seated posture. Just let your arms and hands rest in your lap if you'd like. Or you can bring hands to heart center. On your own, just take one more full breath in and a complete breath out. Settling here in stillness for a few more seconds. Feeling that breath of fresh air having flown or moved through you completely. And as we complete our practice together, we bow saying, Namaste.